So while glancing over some of the previous year questions spanning all the GS papers, I figured out why not try and leverage geography to do something different to cater to the needs of the students, because geography, we have already discussed a lot of aspects regarding disaster management, the physical geography part associated with climate change. And what I have concluded is that without an iota of a doubt, as I have been teaching my students, that geography, if you take the base, geography as the base, then you can understand and write an answer about questions pertaining to different dimensions or different realms beyond geography. So, here again, you might see taking into consideration by just the presentation that we're going to talk about in today's session about India and China. But I have something different to offer you. It's not going to be just about the McMahon line or the Tawang Valley or the Uttarakhand areas or the Pangong Tso lakes or the Depsang plains or the Galwan Valley. So those prelims part is now over. We are going to understand it from an entirely new perspective. So as we proceed in today's lecture, you will see what different approach I try to provide you, and I hope it will really be beneficial for you, not only in writing an answer, but to see the geopolitical relations and the strategic interests and implications on the world from a wider and much larger perspective. So India and China, forever they are the checkmates. They obviously China is the one that starts provoking us. And anyways, so we are going to get into the depth. So this was these questions at the end, like we have been doing in the previous sessions also. We'll be discussing how to write an answer with the help of a sample questions. These are two of the questions which have been recently asked by the UPSC mains examiner as related to GS paper 2, which includes international relations. So one was how China is using its economic relations and positive trade surplus as tools to develop potential military power status in Asia. And the second asks about the SCO, that is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Although these questions have been asked, but the examiner is very clever, as you know, so it can pose questions. UPSC can pose questions in a twisted or different manner, and you have to modify the content which you already have studied according to that question. Hmm. So this East Coast Rail link, I don't know. You should keep studying. Like I tell my pupils that current affairs are very essential to follow. Although right now maybe some of the institutes have started publishing their yearly compendium or consolidated material of mains, but it is very difficult. It is from my experience that it is near impossible to link the various issues together if you study all the current affairs at once. So recently, what happened was that the Chinese premier, Prime Minister Li Kuang, he met the Malaysian Prime Minister, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, and it was on the occasion of the inauguration of the Gombak Terminal Railway Station in Malaysia. So that is near Port Kelang. So basically, East Coast Rail Link, this project had been initiated earlier in 2017. It had been envisaged a few years back, but due to various reasons such as funding, political relations, and obviously you might have heard of this term debt trap diplomacy, which China has effectively used against countries such as Pakistan. That is, in simple words, it promises a lot of infrastructure, it doles out a lot of loans at a high rate of interest. And then what it does is, when the countries are unable to pay back the loans along with the interest, then it secures proxy control over its strategic assets. Okay. So East Coast Rail Link, because mapping is one thing which I am pretty fond of. It makes things interesting. So some of the common things which I would, so basically East Coast Rail Link, this is Vietnam. Okay, this here, this is Malaysia, then Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and this is China. So this Kunming is one of the southern hubs or southern important cities of China, and the plan or the aim of the ECRL or East Coast Rail Link is to link this important city all the way through eastern, middle, and western lines to Singapore, the city state. And in a way, of course, the ostensible reason, ostensible explanation which China gives is trade, investment, economic growth. So all this is, you know, these words are always associated with the excuses or the pretext associated with China, economic growth, transportation, freight, cargo. So in brief, we are going to study. So here we can see some important cities: Hanoi capital, Vientiane, Naypyidaw, Mandalay, Yangon or Rangoon, Chiang Mai, Bangkok, Kota Bharu. These places are also important from the point of view of prelims in any competitive examinations. So this is an important area on the Kelantan River. So right now, only that this red portion between Kunming and Vientiane is operational. So Kota Bharu and all the way this port Kelang is important. This link is important. So this railway line. So this is an important development which has been in the news. So the plan of the East Coast Rail Link is that China wants to establish a pan-Asian rail network in order to promote trade, investment, economic development, mutual cooperation. That are the normal cliched words, not much to discuss in that. So this purple area, this is also Malaysia, this is also Malaysia, but we are only talking about this part of the Southeast Asian nations. And just to put things in perspective, obviously, you already know about the Belt and Road Initiative, which is China's attempt to revitalize the old Silk Route and establish connections all the way from Xi'an or Beijing to the western part, Venice, then we have Rotterdam, Duisburg in Germany, and also so all this span, and we have the Maritime Silk Road also. So this is relatively a new development, and the point is, China, what it wants is that by East Coast Rail Link, China also has certain, you can say, hidden motives, because already we know that in the South China Sea as well as the East China Sea, a lot of disputed territories and islands are there. So by these development and whatever reasons, so China wants to mitigate some of the adverse effects or establish a certain goodwill with these ASEAN nations. These are countries part of ASEAN. And moreover, some important stats which you should know in order to substantiate your answer from the mains point of view, that in 2023, the trade between China and Asian countries, it was to the tune of $911.7 billion. And how you can relate it with the recent issues also, you might have heard about this particular phenomena, internationalization of the rupee. So we know that in the major basket of currencies in the world, the major component is the dollar. Okay. So India, the rupee, India strives, India wants to make the rupee also a tradable, a much in demand currency. So recently, what has been observed is that the trade between India and Russia has increased significantly because of the cheap oil supply. But then also India has a deficit with trade deficit with Russia. Now, when it comes to Russia and China, they are also close together because of various sanctions, war in Ukraine, the philosophy, the political ideology, and whatnot. So, Russia, China also have a very good trade balance between them, and China is at a trade surplus. So, there is a Russia in Russia, the companies. or the investors, they demand the yuan, which is the currency of China. Okay. And so the internationalization of rupee is being hindered, the process is being hindered because the demand of rupee is not there. The investors or the companies, they are preferring the yuan or the dollar. Okay. So these are some of the important aspects, and moreover, I'll discuss some more facts, so this should be clear to you. Okay, so just a brief, you already know about this Belt and Road Initiative, a revitalization or rejuvenation of the ancient Silk Road. So some important cities: Beijing, Xi'an, Urumqi, Almaty, Bishkek, Samarkand, Dushanbe, Tehran, and then to Istanbul, in ancient time, Constantinople, Moscow, Duisburg, Rotterdam, which is an important port in Netherlands. Then coming back to Venice, then Piraeus, a port in Greece, and then linking some of the countries of Africa also. So I'll show you the maritime Silk Route also, and Belt and Road Initiative. India has been consistently against this initiative. Why? Because, of course, this CPEC, China Pakistan Economic Corridor, which extends from Kashgar to Gwadar port of Pakistan. This is a contentious because it impinges upon the sovereignty of our Indian nation. It passes through the Gilgit Baltistan area, which is a sovereign territory of India under Pakistan occupation. So this is the main. Otherwise, India is also associated in various forums. SCO is one forum, which in which India is associated with China. Other forums are the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So these should also be kept in mind. So this is the maritime Silk Route, just to give you a major perspective. So we had discussed the route. So this here we have in the Netherlands, Rotterdam, then in the maritime Silk Route, Qingdao, Xiamen, Guangzhou, Singapore, Hambantota, Sri Lanka, then a lot of East African Standard Gauge Railway in Africa. So we have Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Democratic Republic of Congo, Djibouti, Aden, Yemen, Haifa, port in Israel, Sokhna, Egypt. So this is how Russia is planning, Russia has already planned and started implementing on a large scale the influence in the Indo-Pacific region. And also, so this recently, this part I have already discussed, the East Coast Railing, the ECRL. So what is the ECRL? It is part of China's BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, 665-kilometer rail link, Kota Bharu with Port Klang in Malaysia, $10 billion investment, improve connectivity, transportation of freight, tourism, mutual cooperation, development, maintaining peace, securing each other's strategic interest and whatnot. It was stalled. So work began in 2017, but due to various issues, it was stalled. And broader vision of a pan-Asian railway, improve connectivity, economic integration. So some points, if you need to substantiate or give examples in the answer in mains, you can use these. So China's, what are the China's geopolitical interests between behind the ECRL? Again, strengthen economic ties in we have already talked about Asia, $911.7 billion itself. Expand influence, part of BRI, remove regional competitors like US and Japan. So US and Japan are also trying to increase their influence in this region. Then strategic interest, greater access to Strait of Malacca. Strait of Malacca is an important strait for trade. This here we had discussed the Port Klang and here the Kota Bharu. So this Strait of Malacca constitutes a significant proportion of trading vessels which move through, and it has also become a choke point. I had discussed in one of the previous sessions that there is a plan, this isthmus of Kra, to make a channel through this so that the trade can be facilitated or diverted through this also. Anyways, territorial disputes. So goodwill and ease tension in South China Sea, but China always has some hidden motive. So it is trying to play both angel and devil at the same time. Okay, so counter rivals, why I have drawn this, that although regional competitors like US and Japan are there, but what China does, like it has done with Pakistan, it invests, it provides loans, and then when the loans are, when the country is unable to repay those loans, then it acquires, it treats those countries as puppets. So it's not that the countries like Thailand and Myanmar are not aware of this trend, but still. Then challenges and concern consisting of ECRL. So Thailand has also faced problems, debt diplomacy. Then doubts have been expressed of projections of the economic gains. That is one of the things is, while in India itself, like we can say that if we consider Nilgiri railways, if we bring it all the way and start it, it cannot run on the tracks on which Shatabdi Express or Rajdhani Express run because of the difference in the rail gauge length or width. So similarly, there also in various countries there are difference in the standards in which the gauge length is measured. So that is one of, and then there are concerns over demand also, because even if a rail link is developed and the cargo freight or passenger or tourism is, the aim is to convey or connect all this via rail and conduct the freight mechanisms all the way from Kunming to Singapore, that would be much more expensive as compared to people preferring the flights airways. Also, cargo shuttle would be cheaper if transported first to the coast and then by boat to Singapore. But again, ECRL, it will generate jobs, economic cooperation, and development, same old story. So everything is a double edged sword. It comes with its pros and cons. Okay, so now we quickly will discuss the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So recently, our External Affairs Minister, Shri Subramaniam Jaishankar, he attended the Head of States Council meeting of the SCO, which happens every year. It was conducted in the capital Astana of Kazakhstan. So it occurs every year, and the next year the presidency or the chairmanship of the council will be transferred to Beijing in China. So a little history behind Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Basically, the advent or the background was in 1991, that is the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union disintegrated and made 15 countries. So these Central Asia primarily consists of the five Asian republics: Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. So now the plan is to integrate these countries because they have long been on relegated to the backbench, but these are actually very strategic areas. These have been part of the Soviet Republic, and Soviet Republic also wishes to continue to maintain its influence in these countries, and also it is rich in resources also, minerals, and wherever there are resources, minerals, so the countries they will enter into a race. So both China and Russia. So it SCO, it began, the idea was floated in 1996 as is Shanghai 5. The reason was that due to the dissolution of the Soviet Republic, it was presumed that the dissolution would lead to the religious extremism, this religious and ethnic extremism and fundamentalism. So terrorism, to counter terrorism, fundamentalism, and still also you might keep on hearing news in the in fact in some of the territories in China itself, in Russia itself. Recently, this Dagestan was in news. Chechnya has been in news, also asked in prelims. So basically, these five countries, China, Russia, Kazakhstan, then Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. These five were part. Then in 2006, it was felt the need was felt to include Uzbekistan as well. Okay. Then India and Pakistan were included as the next members in 2017. In 2023, Iran became a member. Then in 2024, the recent member is Belarus, which is a sort of ally for Russia. It is in the Eastern Europe, fine, bordering Russia and Ukraine also. So these are the 10 present members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It is basically an intergovernmental, international, permanent organization. Basically, it revolves around the Central Asian republics and it has various principles, respect. One of the important is the terrorism, anti or counter terrorism, which is very important. That is, you might have heard of two major parts of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Is the Secretariat Secretariat of SCO, which is headquartered as at Beijing, and one is the RATS, the regional anti-terrorism structure, which is very important for India also because it continuously derives intelligence, counterintelligence information from the security perspective. It's not that Pakistan is only playing the proxy war or some ISIS is there, Al Qaeda is there, Afghanistan, Taliban, or other. So terrorism threat, it is a worldwide threat. It has to be monitored from all areas, from all directions. So this has headquarters in Uzbekistan, that is Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan. Except Turkmenistan, all these Central Asian republics are part of SCO or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Okay, significance of SCO, cooperation with Central Asian countries. If you see that even post 1991, this is a picture that I took from that is Kyrgyzstan. Okay, so these countries, just because STAN is associated with these countries, suffixed on these countries, does not mean that all is there is going to be complete pandemonium. This is just stereotypes. These are beautiful countries. And recently, you might have heard also that Indians have started. It was in the news. Has started preferring as tourist destination the Central Asian republics and the Caucasian republics also, the Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and these countries because they are beautiful countries. There's much to explore in these countries and they are quite affordable as compared to Western powers of France and Spain and Norway and all that America. So the important point is let's not deviate from the point. Post 1991 also India does not have sufficient or formidable or prominent relations with Central Asian republics. So it is a good way, SEO is a good forum for India to change that. Then countering terrorism, we have already talked about rats. The importance of rats is to secure the counter intelligence and then perform the operations, balancing Chinese dominance in the region. So that has been what most of the international relations have been all about for the past several years now. So obviously China and Russia are the two major powers. So West considers that it is a cozy association which is dominated by Russia and China. But even Russia and China are competing with each other because what I said, the Central Asian republics around which SCO is revolving, they are the countries which were prior or erstwhile part of the Soviet Union. So there also it wants to keep it as there. Russia wants to keep a certain part of control, and China, of course, It also needs resources. It also wants to establish control over there. Closer Indian Russian cooperation. So it was, in fact, Russia which promulgated or supported the cause of India entering into the SCO. Okay, so you know that China would have favored Pakistan because they are friends till the end. And anyways, so with the advent of Iran also in 2023, the geodynamics or the geopolitical situation has varied because India has good relationship with not only Russia but Iran as well. So there is these three countries on one side, and this in China and Pakistan, which are continuously causing problems for our nation. Okay, shortcomings. So some of these you already know, or you can figure out, brainstorm the disputes among the member countries. So already we know, we have already discussed the disputes between India, China, India, Pakistan. And although one of the principles of SCO, as I mentioned earlier, is to mutually respect the sovereignty of each other, not only the Central Asian republics, but with the war in Ukraine. So Russia's role as the maintainer of peace or promulgator of peace is under massive scrutiny. So there is a divergence in the interests of the member countries. What India has to do is it has to extract the maximum amount of economic benefits and maintain good diplomatic relations without falling into any of the traps. So Russia is considered as an all-weather friend, and this we have already discussed. So divergent interests from member countries, that is one of the issue. Competition for dominance between China and Russia. Although they, China and Russia, they both collaborate on various issues. They share intel, they share a lot of trade, arms and ammunition, etc. But still, Chinese footprint is the increasing massively. The rapidly increasing Chinese footprint is a cause of concern for any country. So veterans describe the SEO as a diplomatic battlefield. So this is very important. So finally, the most important aspect is the, now I have already discussed two answers and I said I would be providing you with something different. So we are going to discuss the issue of Bangladesh's foreign policy in the context of its relations with India and China. You have a lot of context now because international relations, when you consider mains, you have to study a lot of topics. Sort of that India Bangladesh relations as well as China Bangladesh relations are also very important. So there are a lot of ideas which come to mind in how you can approach the question. So I'll discuss one of the ideas. So basically, you can start on a positive note, that you can say that Bangladesh expects to gain economic benefits. There's not much scope for any diagram. Economic benefits and securing its strategic interests while balancing its posture between India and China. So this is just one of my ways in which I would start. Again, introduction can vary a lot. Now the important how to write the body. There are too many points. So what I would do is to write different points or subheadings and then contrast in the same, because we have limited words. 250 words are still limited for this type of question. So we can start with history. So the relations I'll just write the keywords and you can elaborate on that. So the India Bangladesh relations, they are imprinted on the imprinted in the 1978 Bangladesh Liberation War. So India played a very important role, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and others. Then there was some negative sentiment, and till now we know that there are two major parties, political parties in Bangladesh, the Awami League and the Bangladesh National Party. So since the advent of Sheikh Hasina, which is who is seen as pro India, and the signing of Ganga Water Sharing Treaty, so the relations have improved. Okay. But at the same time, when we consider history, we can also discuss what are the points of conflict or irritants. Now, you have heard about NRC, National Register of Citizens, which is allegedly aimed at weeding out or deporting illegal Bangladeshi immigrants. So, that is a sore point. And at the same time, China is also, in a subtle manner, taking a stand on the Rohingya refugees. So often it has been portrayed in the international media that India has put the blame of Rohingya refugees entering into India on Bangladesh, because they from Rakhine state in Myanmar where they are persecuted, they go to Bangladesh and they might enter India. There is a porous border. You have the problems of drug smuggling, even cattle smuggling also. So here there is a contrast how Bangladesh is trying to balance between India and China. So India, in a way, they are good. India has helped, has been a good neighbor, as has India with other neighborhood countries also, but this current irritants, so this can be one. Then if we talk about the infrastructure, a lot of infrastructure development projects have been collaborated between India and Bangladesh. A very recent was 2018, the first ever nuclear power plant, Rupur nuclear power plant, to be developed in Bangladesh with the guidance of India, Bangladesh, and Russia and other. Ch- Bangladesh is also a major importer of electricity. Okay. Then some bridges, Matri power plant. Okay. But at the same time, recently Sheikh Hasina also met with the China president. So she has asked for the Band Bangu investment zones. It has asked China to develop that and some special economic zones also. So this is how the contrast can be made. Okay. Then the disputes disputes, we can say that positive things had happened in 2014. The historic land boundary agreement was signed between India and Bangladesh, in which conclaves were exchanged. Mm. But at the same time, the the Tista water sharing of these waters is still a major point of contention between the two countries. At the same time, as of late, China has decided to provide technical and financial assistance to work on developing projects on the Tista River, which part which lies in Bangladesh, financial technical assistance. So this is a cause for concern also. So these are. Then we can write about the economic cooperation. So we know that India is the largest trading partner of Bangladesh in South Asia. So its trade, although after COVID it declined, but it reached to around 18.2 billion dollars in 2021-22. But as far as China is concerned, 2023, it also made a massive trade between India and China, sorry, Bangladesh and China, three of the order of 3.2 billion dollars. Okay, and Chinese investment, the foreign direct investment, it is a major hub. Then we can talk about the defense and security. So, in case of defense and security, there are a lot of border issues, like we talked about the cattle and drug smuggling and trafficking, the constraint between India and Bangladesh. But at the same time, Bangladesh is the second largest destination for arms export for China right after Pakistan. Okay. Here in economic cooperation, you can also mention this important point. You might have heard that, read in the news that after 2026, Bangladesh is set to lose its LDC status, that is least developed country status. So it is going to enter the lower middle economy. So a lot of tariffs which were which on the products which Bangladesh exported, they were after 2026 they will be resumed. So China has pledged that it will waive off the duties for 98% of Bangladeshi goods. Although India has also paved the way for such measures. So this, and then in defense, the China also is exporter, or it makes provisions for Bangladesh in terms of submarines and other military equipment. So although in case of India, there are some military exercises like Sampriti, which is conducted between the armies of India and Bangladesh. And then there is Bongo Sagar, which is a naval maritime exercise between the two countries. So India, so you can see how I'm trying to contrast between the two. And one more point which comes to my mind is the regional groupings. So Bangladesh and India are the common players in important forums like SAARC, BIMSTEC, Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA. And whereas when China is concerned, Bangladesh is a major country or nation in its Belt and Road Initiative, to which is vehemently opposed by our nation. So this is how you can elaborate, you can write and diversify your answer. A lot of aspects are covered. Then you can write as a conclusion that Bangladesh has to walk a tightrope if it wishes to maintain sound geopolitical relations with both India and China, while securing its energy, territorial, maritime, and economic interests. So you can give an apt conclusion, not necessarily to write in my way. you can come up with your own innovations. So this is how you can write and conclude this answer. Fine. So although discuss evolving dynamics. So we have evolving dynamics. We have discussed both we started from the history part and we concluded with the economic cooperation, FDIs and all that, and context comparison between India and China. If you have some other approach, you can write and submit the answer to me. Fine. So that was all for today. I hope you found this session beneficial. So it's like I said, I am going to reiterate. If you understand the geography, the geopolitical nature, you can arrive and conclude. You can understand various other topics or realms. So till we meet again, Jai Hind.